This is Jarrod Horak, and I'm back with my final video this week. I did my Road to the Oaks and Derby video series. I took a look at the Demoiselle Stakes from Aqueduct and the Remsen from that same venue. And again, from Aqueduct here, I'm going to take a look at the Grade 1 Cigar Mile Handicap. Now, if you're interested in my closing week full cards from Del Mar, and that will be for December 2nd, 3rd, and 4th this week, you can head on over to the runawayhorse.com on my sales page. You can purchase individual full cards or the weekly and weekend packages. And they will be the final 3 days at Del Mar, and then on closing day, they're going to have a mandatory payout in that pick 6. So now let's get into the analysis of this video. I'm going to be doing Saturday, December 3rd, 2022, the 9th race at Aqueduct, the Grade 1 $750,000 Cigar Mile Handicap, 3-year-olds and up, 1 mile, around 1 turn on the main track, and the scheduled post time, 3:43 p.m. Eastern Time. Double Crown will break from the inside side post. He's exiting a victory in the Grade 2 Kelso at this course and distance. That was a good effort on October 29th. Stalked the pace in a 6-horse field and won there at 42-1. Probably be a big price again. Much better field here. And I think he's going to have to run a much better race if he expects to compete with these. Zandon is number 2, and he was on the Kentucky Derby Trail. And he's always been a good horse. He's run 8 times, and he's finished in the top 3 in all 8 starts. And when he wins, he's very impressive. Like his career debut at Belmont Park, October of 2021, when he won that one, nicely stalking the pace. And then he stretched out to 1 mile and 1/8 in the Remsen second time out, and then he missed by a nose. Mo Donegal won that one, your Belmont Stakes winner this year. In the Risen Star Stakes, he was 3rd behind Epicenter, and he didn't have a good start at all there. And then the Bluegrass Stakes, that was his best race, one of his most visually impressive races, where he rallied from 10th place to win going away by more than 2 lengths. In the Kentucky Derby, he got a lot of pace help. He was probably a little bit too close to the pace, but he still ran a good race from post 10 in a 20-horse field. He ended up finishing 3rd, just 3/4 lengths behind Epicenter, and Rich Strike was your long shot winner that day, and he hasn't won since then. And then Epicenter beat this one in the Jim Dandy and the Travers, but he ran decent races both times. And then in the Pennsylvania Derby, Taba beat him there, but he did finish well in front of Cyberknife. So Zandon has been facing some of the best 3-year-olds in the country this year at longer distances, and now he's cutting back. And maybe some of those longer distances, especially when you get to 1.25 miles, his kick just runs out there. He just doesn't quite want to go that far, or at least that's the way it looked at this point in the year. Maybe he'll be different during his 4-year-old season. But for this year, he tops out at 1 mile and 1/8. And looking at his 6-furlong debut and how impressive he was that day, cutting back to a 1-turn mile, you could see a big kick from this one under Joel Rosario. Rosario rode him in his maiden win, and then he rode him in the Pennsylvania Derby. So now he will ride back, and I expect him to produce a nice kick in this race. White Abarrio for trainer Safi Joseph Jr., another sophomore colt in here. I read Ortiz Jr. will ride this one, and he's 4 for 9 lifetime with a 2nd and a 3rd. The problem with him, and I think it's pretty easy to figure out at this point, that he just loves Gulfstream Park. Whenever he runs at Gulfstream Park, he wins. Like his maiden win, and then an optional claiming win, and then he won the Holy Bull and the Florida Derby. So he's 4 for 4 at Gulfstream. You take him away from Gulfstream Park, hasn't won yet, and he's only hit the board twice. And clearly his best race away from Gulfstream Park was the Ohio Derby, and in that race he had Lasix. He's not going to have Lasix in here. So if this was a 1-turn mile at Gulfstream Park, I would move him way up and think that he has a good chance. But until he can prove he can run a super quality race, a Grade 1 quality race away from that venue, I want nothing to do with him. Get Her Number, that's the next one for trainer Peter Miller. I thought that 6 furlongs was too short last time, and that was a salty optional claiming race. Don't be surprised that it was, you look at it and say, oh, it was just an optional claiming win. Ginobili, a stakes winner, was 2nd, and Forbidden Kingdom, another graded stakes winner, was 3rd. So that was a graded stakes quality sprint at a distance probably too short for him, but he rallied to win it anyway. So that was a nice effort, but he was putting Lasix back on that day. And his other win, recent win at Churchill Downs, he also had Lasix. And then his other win this year, he also had it, and he doesn't have it in this spot. So that could be the deciding factor. And then plus he doesn't have a lot of speed. He likes to rally. But I think this 1-turn mile is probably a good distance for him, and I can see him hitting the board in here under Luis Saez. Besos is another one that likes to rally from off the pace. In the Breeders' Cup Sprint, he just got too far back. He ended up finishing 5th in an 11-horse field. He won a 6-furlong optional claiming race before that at Churchill. He was one that was highly regarded. In 2021 on the road to the Derby. In the Louisiana Derby, he finished 3rd. In the Kentucky Derby, he was 5th. Then the Matt Winn Stakes, he finished 2nd. And then they started dropping him down in class. An optional claiming race, he won that one. Then they tried to step him back up in the Mine Shaft and then the Commonwealth. At Keeneland, he was 4th and 3rd in those races. And then I mentioned his last 2, that optional claiming win and Breeders' Cup Sprint. They're still trying to figure out exactly what he wants to do. Does he want to route? Does he want to sprint? What is exactly his class level? I've never thought that he was a grade 1 class horse, but I think he's got enough ability to hit the board in this race. Outlier is one that can impact the pace. He finished 2nd in his last 3 starts. I just think this is just too tough of a spot for him. He is 4 for 12 at the distance. He's run once at Aqueduct. That was at 1 mile against Starter Allowance Company, and he ended up finishing 2nd. That was on November 12th. Then he ran right back on November 17th, and he missed by a head, and now he's back again on December 3rd. So he's been pretty busy lately. Not a ton of pace in this race, and I would expect that he should impact that pace. Mind Control, it's always been a good one. He's run 28 times with 11 wins. He's banked more than $1.7 million in his career. He's run at Aqueduct 7 times, 4 wins, 2 seconds, and a third. 5 starts at the 1 mile distance with 4 wins and a second. He was placed first in the Parks Dirt Mile last time out as the heavy favorite. And he's one that he just goes out there and he tries hard every time. He's got some tactical speed. He can go to the front if he has to. And I think he is a solid contender. I like horses breaking from outside posts at this distance, 1 turn mile type distances, 7 furlongs. I like those horses with early pressing speed and outer posts. John Velasquez, his regular rider, stays put. Todd Pletcher's the trainer here, and he looks like a solid contender. So I think Mind Control probably the one to beat. If he can just work out that first run trip and hold off Zandon, I think that's what he's going to try to do. I think it's definitely between those two. I think one of those two are going to win this race. I'm going to pick Zandon on top just because he's a 3-year-old in here. I think that cutting back in distance is going to give him a much better kick than we've been seeing from him, even though he's been running well against some really good 3-year-old company like Taba and Epicenter. So I think now getting into this race, getting late in the year, a 3-year-old that could still have some upside, and he's very consistent, and I think he can produce a big kick in here and win this race. So Zandon will be my top choice, and my second choice is going to be Mind Control. I think he's definitely a solid contender if you like him on top, don't blame you at all. And then 2 other horses that I'm going to throw into a trifecta will be the 4 Getter Number and the 5 Besos. So I'll make a win wager on Zandon, and I'll just play a one-way exacta with Zandon over number 7 Mind Control, and then a trifecta key. I'll put Zandon on top, and I will use Get Her Number the 4, Besos the 5, and the 7 Mind Control in 2nd and 3rd. So that trifecta key. So that will wrap up my look at the Cigar Mile and my wagering strategies. So don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment if you like this content. I'll be back. Most of my videos are going to be on the road to the Oaks and Derby video series this year and then into next year. And then I'll also be covering some bigger grade 1 races around the country as well. So until I see you next time, good luck at the races.